There's no way to run away from history unless you're dead. And even still, the history is going to still continue. Hey y'all, I am Michele Mazellegh. Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to share with you all this video clip and then I'm going to come back and talk about it. So let's get into it.
Not African. We are not African, nor are we African American. That name Africa was given to those people on that continent for us to believe over here that those are the only people that we have. What about the black people in Australia? How did they get in Australia? What about the black people in New Guinea, in New Zealand? How did they get over there? What about the black people in China, the black people in Russia, the black people in South America, North America? How did they get there? We are original people of the planet Earth. The whole planet was black at one time. All right? That's what it is. We are not African. We are original people of the planet Earth. We are not African. Get that out of your head.
There are some people on this earth, including black people, some black people that are very upset with the goodness and the positivities that's coming towards the continent of Africa. And if they didn't care about the continent of Africa, why is it that that's the only continent that some of y'all want to consistently and continually talk about on social media? If the African continent is as poor as y'all really believe, if the people are as uncivilized as you want to believe, if it is not a country that is on the level of whatever country you're from, if that's what you believe, then why do some of you all continue to waste your time on the continent? Why is that even something that you want to put on social media? This man took up however many minutes that he took up to spread that we are not African. First of all, who is he talking about? Is he talking about black people? Is that who he's talking about? He said we didn't specify who the we was. He said that we're not African American. So I guess I can say he's talking about black people. So let's address some of the parts in this video. I'm sorry. Sometimes I like to do commentary on reactions on these types of videos because I just think it's funny. Because I'm a history teacher, let's give him a little bit of history. Theory has said, and it has been proven, that human life started on the African continent. Now, it was not called the African continent, or it didn't look like the African continent like we know it today, but it was found in the area that will be considered the continent of Africa. It has been theoretically proven. They have found proof that the oldest fossils of any type of life was found on the continent of Africa. There's also some theories as to how people got to other parts of the world. There's a word called migration. Now, in the United States of America, there was something called the Great Migration that happened with African Americans, where the majority of black people in the United States were living in the South. And because they were tired of the discrimination, the violence, the racism, they were tired of the unequal treatment, a lot of them moved to the North to start a new life, so that they could take advantage of new opportunities and they would not have to be in fear for their life. That's the reason why you see a lot of black people in some of those states in the North, such as Michigan, such as New York, such as Illinois. You see a lot of presence of black people in some of these areas because of the Great Migration. That same type of situation happened during the early civilization times, early human times of life. It was called human migration. And what theory has said is that the life started on the continent of Africa. And what happened was, due to climate change, due to lack of food, humans started to migrate to other areas of the world. And theory says that they were able to make the journey to these different parts of the world through what is called the Bering Strait. So a lot of them crossed the Bering Strait. They went to Asia, Europe. They migrated to North America, migrated to all these other continents of the world as well. Remember that the continents are not the way we see it now. So they migrated to these other parts of the world, which is the reason why there's people all over the world. Now, when we start getting into ethnic groups and stuff like that, we're talking about once they settled into these places, but because before they became civilizations, humans were nomadic, which means they moved from place to place. When the agricultural revolution started, then these communities started to stay in one place. Humans started to stay in one place, and they started to develop in these communities. These communities ultimately started to develop into empires and then civilizations. And that's the reason why you have these different civilizations in these different areas, because when these nomadic humans during that human migration got to these different areas of the world, they started to form a community. And when they started to grow their own food, when they started to domesticate animals, then they were able to adapt then to the environment, and they were able to then actually set up communities there, and they didn't have to move around so much. Now, not to say that there are still nomadic people still in the world, but majority of the people, as we all know, are living in communities, living in cities and countries and states and things like that. So that's the reason why you start having these different civilizations with different types of cultures, language, and things like that, because of where they migrated to. Now, it is not a secret that Black people are all over the world. Black people are not just in the United States of America. Black people are not just in the continent of Africa. We know that. Nobody is saying that. But however, when you start going into these places where they are darker skinned, and they would consider them to be somewhat of African lineage, if you go back into the stories of these people in Asia, in New Zealand, in Australia, in parts of Brazil, when you start going to these places, the stories is that there is some African lineage attached to that story somewhere. And so that's something I definitely want to research more into, as far as Black people in these different areas, because some of them would have gotten there probably by the slave trade. Other ones would have gotten there by migration. There's a lot of different factors as to how these people are here, but nobody is saying that. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what his point is. Now, when we're talking about African Americans, and we talking about Black people in the United States, and we ain't talking about every part of the world. People want to sit there and refute the fact that they have African lineage. Okay, they can refute that all day. That's African lineage there in the United States of America. That ain't nothing else but the lineage of the African continent. Whether or not you want to believe it or not, you want to get on social media and create a whole little thing. Yeah. The problem is that there are a lot of people around the world that are literally fearful of the continent of Africa. They're still fearful of this continent. They're fearful of where it's going. They are fearful that it has come to the point where people are literally talking about the African continent all the time. It's all over social media. There is more history about the continent of Africa than there has ever been before. And people are afraid of that, because they actually think, and they actually feel, not think, they actually feel as though that's going to somehow overshadow them some sort of way. And it's just like, it's not. You're still going to have your own story as an American in the United States of America, if that's what you claim. Saying that you are part of the continent of Africa isn't going to change the fact that you are American. And I think that's what people need to realize. Me saying that I have African lineage isn't going to take away the fact that I was born and raised in the United States of America. The only thing it's going to tell me is where my story started, which is just as important to me as to, you know, where I was born and raised. It's not going to take away the fact. And I think that's what scares some African Americans of holding that connection. They literally think it's going to erase them being an American, or it's going to replace them being an American, or somebody's going to think they're from the continent of Africa. That's not what that means. You know, a lot of my family on my dad's side is from North Carolina. I don't know anything about North Carolina. I've been there once or twice. I mean, I might have been there more than that. I don't even remember it. But a lot of my dad's people is from North Carolina. I was born and raised in another state. So I'm not going to say that North Carolina or that part of that state is not a part of who I am just because I've never been there. Me claiming that part of my history is not going to take away the fact of where I was born and raised. So, you know, that's the thing with the continent of Africa. Me saying that I have a lineage to the continent of Africa is not going to diminish me as an American. And that's what some black people just can't seem to understand. And so they put these videos out to want to literally convince themselves, because they're not convincing anybody else. They're trying to convince themselves of who they don't want to be, what they don't want to claim. And so they feel like if they say it out loud, it becomes true. And it's not going to take away history. I mean, there's no amount of social media that you can put out there is going to take away history. And people are on social media claiming that black people are indigenous to the United States of America. And then some people are even trying to say that it was all a lie, that the transatlantic slave trade is a lie. I mean, the stories that are on social media now is just bogus and preposterous. But I do want to ask those people though, the Europeans and Americans are very good at hiding stuff. And the one thing that they would have wanted to hide would be the fact of them enslaving African people. They would have wanted to hide that because they would not want that to be a part of their story. They would have hid that altogether. It's never been hidden. The transatlantic slave trade has never been hidden. Enslaved Africans has never been hidden. None of that has been hidden from the history books. None of it has been hidden from school. I mean, we all know that. So if they're going to hide the fact, why wouldn't they have hid the fact that they enslaved Africans and brought them to the United States of America? Would that not be something that you want to hide? Because then you can say you just got some people from the Americas and just decided to use them. And every history book and all these different people writing it are saying the exact same thing. That they didn't use Native Americans because Native Americans were from that land. They were very susceptible to diseases. They were not able to work the way they wanted them to work. They were getting sick. They were dying off. And so that's the reason why they went to the continent of Africa, because the people there were able to withstand, number one, sun. They were able to withstand diseases. They worked very hard. They were able to work for long hours and not get tired and not get sick and everything like that. And that's the reason why they started transporting them. I mean, y'all don't think that the people that actually believe that whole thing didn't exist, don't y'all think that would have been erased? We wouldn't be talking about that right now, so that there will be no connections to the continent of Africa. We're talking about the same people that has told black people many times to go back to Africa. So, I mean, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. And, you know, people always say, you know, don't listen to the foolishness, don't respond to the foolishness or whatever. And it's like, if you continue to let foolery be on social media without somebody coming up and saying, that's just preposterous, it's crazy, here's the facts to back it up. If you don't have people to continuously do that, then I'm no better than me teaching a child in school that it's okay for you to just write just whatever on your homework. It's okay for you to turn in just not factual lies in your work when it comes to research papers, like it's okay for you to do that because who cares? That's how I think about that. I think about when I see these types of videos and nobody wants to refute what he's saying and people actually agree with him, I'm just like, somebody has to say enough is enough. We cannot continue to be spreading lies about the continent of Africa. If you don't want to be from the continent of Africa, fine. Speak for yourself. You don't have to then go and start spreading lies to prove to yourself and to try to convince yourself that you're not who you know you are. That's the thing. You know who you are and you're trying to do whatever you can to get rid of it, and you can't. There's no way to run away from history unless you're dead. And even still, the history is going to still continue. I'm just saying. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. All right, that's all I have to say in today's video. I am Michelle Mazelleغ. Thank you all for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Bye.